welcome to Emily Kate Made This, Vlogmas edition, and day 16. Life lessons of the day. Do not change your bedding before recording because your hair will go, alas, like majorly frizzy. It's not the best quality bedding. It's Christmas bedding. It was reduced, it was in TK Maxx, and yeah, it's giving me like major static hair. Also, I just did some laundry and now I've got all this dust up my nose, and now that's why I've got a red nose, because I have to keep blowing it. I think I'm allergic to dust. It's like a new thing in my wise years. I also think my camera might be sideways. I'm not changing it. So yes, welcome to the madness of my Vlogmas. I find it so sweet that so many of you think that it's relaxing to watch my videos, because I feel like a crazy, mad, chaotic person. But thank you. And on the theme of mad and chaotic, I have come to realise if I plan in advance things I want to say, like exactly the things I want to say, then I get stressed and I never really, like, I'm not stressed, but I feel like, oh, I have to say that. I didn't say that. I must remember that. But if I just wing it, then it's more relaxing. But then you don't necessarily get all the information that you need. So hopefully I'm like organised to be unorganised today. And you will understand that when I get to the point. So today's episode is going to be worms, because lots of you were interested in my worms, so I will talk about them for a little bit. I don't have a huge amount to say, so don't worry if you're not interested. And so, worms. And yeah, classic not knowing, not being prepared. I don't remember when I got them. I'm going with 2020 because I had a big decision of making like a garden in my, a big decision making time of having a garden on my balcony, which ended up not really working because I'm going to blame the soil, but equally I could just blame the fact that I don't know what I'm doing, and it didn't really work. And I got all the soil. Now I'm thinking it was 2021. It's so irrelevant, it really doesn't matter. I got worms, compost worms. And question number one, what are they for? Why do I have them? I tried to make said garden and I have some houseplants and I wanted to fertilise them regularly, but in a natural way. And the best fertiliser is compost. I don't have a garden to have a compost, like big compost. And I heard about the, I think it's pronounced bukashi, it's the compost method, which is apparently marvellous, and you can do it at home, but then you need a garden because you need to bury the compost after a certain amount of time, and then you dig it up and then you can use it. But as I have said, what, 10 times already, I don't have a garden. So I came across someone on YouTube, but I can't remember who, and they had worms in this like regular storage box, and I thought it was thrilling. I thought it was so exciting. So that piqued my interest, and then a little bit later it came up again. And I don't know what made me just go, that's it, I'm doing it, but I did. And I actually went on Amazon, and I think it might have been the first result. I didn't buy it from Amazon, but that's where I went through some of the options for indoor worm farms or worm homes. What are they called? Vermicomposter. Worm farms. So yeah, came across a few there, went through some reviews, had a look. Back then I knew the theory, I knew theoretically everything there was to know. Since then, memory's like a sieve, and I've kind of, actually I have a very good memory, but not for important things. And yeah, I've kind of forgotten a bit of it, but I'm just in the habit now of doing certain things. But I did bring my little booklet to answer some of the questions. So my worm bin that I eventually went with is Herb Alive. I don't know if Herb Alive. I believe that it's made in the Czech Republic. There are several options, and since buying it I have seen different ones that I would have looked up as they would have been in the running for decision making, whether I would buy them. But they didn't exist then, or at least they didn't come up on my searches. So I went with that one because it fitted in the nicest to my surroundings, because it's going to be slap bang in the middle of my living room. And you do have to pay more if you make it like aesthetically pleasing. You can obviously buy ones that are just like black sacks that hang, and they're grand. I just personally wanted one that blended in with my apartment. If I had a big house, or a bigger house, if I had a house and not an apartment, or like a laundry room, or like some kind of room that didn't need to be aesthetically pleasing, I could have easily got one of those and put them in there. But yeah, they sit right in front of our sofa, so I wanted it to look nice and function, obviously. I got it from a German company. I won't name them because it wasn't a successful experience, and I don't think that would be the case for everybody, so I don't want to like diss them for a singular issue. But I need some tea. The dust is in my throat. Yeah. I had like this horror experience, more like my worms had a horror experience, because I purchased the worm home and it was cheaper if I bought it from this German company instead of Amazon, and then I could get worms that come with it. And there are lots of different worms, and I wanted compost worms, and I can find them if you're in the UK or America or Canada, they're red wigglers that you can buy, and it's super easy. But in Germany it's really difficult to find the right compost worms. I could only find earthworms, so I could only find European night crawlers, which live up to the name, by the way. I'm going to put this down because it's making noises on my dress. And I love how I said this wasn't going to take long. This is going to take a really long time, I have this feeling. Anywho, I got European night crawlers. They're earthworms. They're not like the best for composting. They like to go down to really deep layers of the soil, which isn't fantastic if you're putting food up here, whereas compost worms would tend to stay up the top near the food. And in a worm home like mine, it's like this deep, it's quite shallow, so a lot of them were climbing all the way down to the bottom where they're not supposed to be. That's where any excess water or anything would collect, and it was just a bit stressful, and they weren't particularly happy. And the first night that you get worms, they are stressed. They don't cope well with transport, and they can escape. But before we get to that, the horror story is that my worms got lost in the post. DHL lost my worms, and I was so freaked out that I was going to be delivered a bunch of dead worms, and really sad that there'd be a bunch of dead worms. So they got lost for nearly 3 weeks. They get delivered in some kind of special bag that has some food, like some soil and a bit of sustenance for them, which can last up, I think he said, the guy that I bought it from, I think he said 2 weeks. And they had 3. Eventually, after 3 weeks, the box was found and delivered. I was in a mess because I was really upset that I had a bag of dead worms. And after getting the worm box, and it was covered in mold because the worms had been like in this container, and then it had all been shut in a box and then left, and then it basically went really moldy. I washed it all and then discovered that the worm farm, like the lid and the first container, because I have 2 layers, were broken because it wasn't packaged. It was just put in a thin, like if you buy a kettle and it comes in a cardboard box, it was that equivalent. It was a worm home in a thin cardboard box that was just being smacked and broken. So then I had a new delivery of worms that they sent, but some of the worms had actually survived in the original. So I had like 1,000 worms. Technically it's not 1,000, you get like a mixture of adults, teenagers, babies and eggs, and they weigh it, and that's how many in estimation you'll have. So I had all these worms, and then I had no worm farm to put them in. So then I had to go and get a plastic storage box from downstairs in my basement. I had to take out like whatever was in there, storage stuff, and put them in there. And yeah, they were all freaked out because they had been lost in the post, had no food. It was very stressful. And then I got a message to say that they couldn't replace the worm farm because they'd run out, they didn't have any stock, and they weren't getting them for another 2 weeks. So I didn't have a worm home for them for 2 weeks. I just had this tiny little plastic box. And you're not supposed to even feed them for the first week because they're too stressed, but then they wouldn't have eaten for a month, so yeah. That was stressful. Then, when the worm farm did arrive, the new one, I put them all in there, and it's kind of, if you've probably seen it, it's creamy white. And I put them all in there, but I'd read a lot of times that they can escape if they're stressed or just when they're new to an environment. They like to explore. And I was freaked out that they would just explore my apartment, so we put them on the balcony overnight because it was May, or I think it was May, so it wasn't too hot or too cold, because you can't put the worm farm outside because they'll freeze and die in the winter, and if they sit in the sun they'll bake and die. So they have to be in a shaded spot, and I have a southern facing balcony. So I knew that already, that's why they're houseworms. And we put them on the balcony, and you're supposed to put a light over them because they really don't like light. So if they go towards somewhere that's light, they'll be like, ooh, and then they'll go back down. But we hadn't put the light on outside at that point because we didn't know what they would do. And in the morning I went out and the white cream home was just brown. I have this image of a horror movie style, like from beneath it comes, like completely smothered in worms. But then went back into the worm home. But not all of them did. And I was on the phone to my mum talking about it. I had to clean up the box, and then I just saw all of these worms all over my balcony floor, just everywhere. And it was terrifying. I love my worms and I love animals, but I'm not great up close or personal. Like, I love to see cats. I don't want to touch them. Don't love to see dogs, and I never want to touch them. But it doesn't mean I don't like them. I just don't want to be physically in contact. And worms are the same. I love it when I see them eating and I'm like, oh, there's a worm. But I don't love getting involved. And then European night crawlers are massive earthworms. So they're like that big, really thick. And yeah, the red wigglers are like this big. So that was terrifying. So for the next 3 or 4 days we put the light on out in on the balcony to keep them inside. And desperately trying to keep this long story short, although it's kind of the funniest part, we then brought them back in, and having a worm farm takes a lot of learning and experience, and actually a lot of touching, and as I said, not great. You don't want a worm farm that's too wet, and you don't want the one that's too dry. And if you go online, you get a bazillion different things like, you cannot do this, you can do this, you absolutely can't, you absolutely should. So I ended up having a worm farm that was too dry, because you're supposed to like get the soil and touch it, but I have this feeling of doing that and then all these worms getting, and I didn't want to get physically involved. So I just kind of poke it and guesstimate, and it turns out it was so dry and they were all escaping at night because they didn't like the environment that they were in. And I woke up, and I'm not kidding, I woke up and they were by my bed, like right by my bed. As in, when I get out of my bed and put my feet down, they were there, but all dried up and crispy, because they had obviously dehydrated and died by that point. So that was a horror. And every time I would think about that happening, the next morning I'd hear my husband go, "Oh, there's another one." And they'd be somewhere in the bathroom or the hallway. Like, it was awful. And it only happened because I hadn't given them the environment that they needed. I didn't realise. So I was a terrible worm mother, and I need some more tea. So that was stressful, and then I decided to change up my tactics, and I watered it. I would feed them and then water it, and then suddenly the food was going down faster and they weren't escaping, and it was all going okay. It was simply a matter of making the soil moist enough, but not too wet, that they would be happy. But I realised that they weren't really eating very fast, and if I looked up, every time I looked up about worms, basically the European night crawlers don't breed very quickly, and they don't live as long, and they are slower to eat. And they're not compost worms. So last year, if you were watching my normal videos, you'll know that I got my new worms for Christmas from my brother. Technically, he paid for them, I ordered them, and they came in May, I think, because you can't post them in the winter because they'll freeze in the post. So I got my new worms, and they are tiger worms. And I find it funny because their name is something I can't pronounce. Andre. What are they? They're in here. Okay. Is it Icenia or Essenia? Andre. And Andre is my husband's name. So I find it really funny that my worm breed is the same as my husband. But they're basically tiger worms. So they're bred specifically for composting. So they're small and they eat a lot faster. But you can also get these red wigglers, which are more common in America. Yeah, I'm getting distracted reading it. So yeah, so I got some new worms, put them outside as well so they wouldn't do the same thing, but that was all okay. And they weren't as scared. And you know, I actually recorded receiving them and opening them up and putting them in the worm farm. And then when I checked my camera, I'd actually pressed record, but I hadn't recorded the whole thing. And then when I pressed to stop recording, that's when it recorded. And then I put my phone on the floor. So there's like 20 minutes of black camera in floor with me just going, hello, hello. So yeah, that didn't go onto the YouTubes. But yeah, that's my worm, my worm story. And I got these worms, the new ones, from Hubus in Berlin. And yes, they're marvellous. And they also have some amazing worm farms, and you can build your own, you can do workshops, you can learn lots of stuff via them. So kind of sad that I didn't know about them, but equally I had that crazy drama that is now on the internet. So yeah, there's the worms for you. They get fed once a week, and they don't eat as much as I expected. I thought I'd give them like all my compost rubbish, and I don't know, I just imagined that they were like ferocious animals that would eat everything in 2 days. But mine are pretty slow eaters, and I think, to be honest, I'm not the best worm mother, because if you watch my last Q&A or whatever it was, whenever it was I talked about my worms, you're supposed to deal with the poop early, and then it'll be all fluffy and lovely and airy and can aerate your soil for your plants. And I left mine until it was just like mud and sticky and sludge, and that was stupid, and not doing that again. It just takes so long to sieve out all the worms, and that part's not fun at all. I love having them, I like opening it and seeing them. I like seeing the little babies and seeing that they're eggs and knowing that like life is happening, and seeing what was an orange or an apple disappear. That's quite exciting. That is one issue, is that they eat certain things, not other things. So they don't eat acidic things like oranges, tomatoes, can't even think. Onions, garlic, chilies, they don't eat that kind of thing. So that's a lot of the stuff that we eat. So they end up just having tea leaves, and coffee grounds, which I haven't been having very much, because the coffee grounds are not acidic. Once they're made into coffee, the acidity is removed. So yeah, they have a kind of specific diet, even though it's not specific. It's just, it happens to be that we eat a lot of foods that they don't. But it's grand. Just give them, got some eggshells that I grind up because they need the minerals. Yeah, apple cores and avocado bits and pumpkin bits and just scraps, really. Okay, is that enough on the worms? Do you want to know anything else? If you do, let me know. If you're still here after my long rant and story. Okay, was there anything else I wanted to say? Not even sure how long I've been talking. It doesn't tell me on my camera. I can show you an update on my job one. Okay, we have snowman. So I think I just have another, I need to choose 2 more repeats to put onto the sleeves, and then the ribbing, and that will be 1 sleeve done. But of course 2 more repeats is still another like 2 days of work. But we'll see what happens. See if I can get one done. Maybe I can get it done today. That would be very cool. But I have a lot of stuff to do today. So. And before I go, I should probably mention what I'm wearing, because I haven't done that at all. I'm going to put this down. I'm wearing my ranunculus. Made this about this time last year, I think. It's in my leftovers. Is it leftovers? I was given some scraps from my mum, who was given them by somebody else, and it was drops Nord in like a jeans blue colour, and then I added some Tilia silk mohair. It is the first and only mohair sweater that I have, so that has to change because it's so nice and soft and I really love it. And I wouldn't choose this colour, but it's nice. And I wear this a lot, like a lot, but I would definitely I would choose it. I like other colours a lot more, but I think it's a nice colour, and I think blue suits me. I think blue suits me more than I care to believe, because I don't actually really like blue that much, but like everything in my life is blue. Wearing a blue dress, got blue socks. Like basically all my china is blue. Like, apparently I like blue, I'm just, don't know, it's weird. I love blue and white china, and I've got loads of blue. I can't pronounce it, it's Polish, but like Bolesławiec, pottery, love that, that's blue. Yeah, I'm just rambling now, so I'm going to stop talking. I'm going to try and edit this video together and put it up. Hopefully you're satisfied with your answer. And I'm going to add in the other question and answer that I answered last time. Yeah, okay, see you later.